Hello, I've got a really fun little project for you today, quick and easy. It's this little doll's house. And this was requested by a lady who has seen this little doll's house that sits at the side of my desk. You may have seen it if you watch my tutorials. And I made this many years ago just to sit in my doll's house attic. So I've updated the design a little bit. And I've painted it differently to make it look like a little fisherman's cottage. So I used a beche wood, and that's spelled O-B-E-C-H-E, nice fine-grained craft wood, suitable for smaller projects as well. You'll need a craft knife, and I use this Swan Morton knife which has a metal handle and takes a size 10A blade. You'll need a steel rule, obviously for measuring but also for cutting your wood along with your craft knife. A wood glue or PVA. I use cocktail sticks to apply my glue with, which I dispense onto a piece of cereal packet card. And I use cocktail sticks to remove glue from along the joins as well. I used white emulsion paint, which I textured with a fine sand. And then for the roof, a grey emulsion paint. And then a couple of grades of sandpaper. I usually use a 120 for the harder sanding and a 500 to prepare for paint and shaping. But this is quite an easy project. Haven't really done a lot of sanding because I wanted it to look a bit weathered. I think that's everything you're going to need. The cutting list is coming up next, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to begin by constructing the front panel, and the reason I've done it in all of these small parts is that it's so much easier than cutting the small holes into the sheet of wood. So this is just an easier method, and as we're going to be using a textured paint, you won't see any of the joins once it's complete. Okay, so lay it out on your worktop like this, so you've got 3 squares between 2 of the vertical strips on either side, and then you've got your central panel in the middle there. And we're going to begin by gluing a vertical strip to each side of the central panel to make our front door opening. So I've applied some glue here to a piece of cereal packet card, and I'm going to use a cocktail stick to apply it with. So apply glue to each side of that central panel, each long side or long edge. Like that. And then pop that back down and glue a strip to either side so that the top of all 3 pieces is flush. You've got a nice straight line across the top there. Squeeze those together. And to keep that top line straight, you can just use a spare piece of wood or a piece of strip wood and just push them all up to it. So you're getting a nice straight line along the top then, like that. Press them together as well. Piece just came off then, so I'll just squeeze that together a bit more. Like that, and always slide things along your worktop when you want to move them rather than picking them up, as they might just fall apart before the glue has completely dried. And then, because these are quite fiddly pieces, you might just want to use tweezers to handle them with. And we're now going to attach a square to each side of this piece we've just constructed. So apply glue to one edge of one of your squares, and then glue that to the top of that vertical strip. Doesn't want to leave the tweezers now. Use a sort of another cocktail stick to help manoeuvre things into position. I'm going to glue another square to the other side, like that. And you can use your piece of strip wood or spare wood again, just to push all that up so you know you've got a nice straight line along the top there. Press it down as well. I'm just going to slide it along a bit. And then the next square, we want to attach it again to this same vertical strip, but so that it's level with the bottom of that central panel. And this is then creating our top windows. So again, apply glue along one edge of one of your squares. Oops. That one will go there. So the bottom edge is flush with the bottom edge of that central panel. And the same on the other side. Like that. And then the final two squares we're going to attach to the bottom of that same strip. Again, your nice flush line along this bottom edge. And the remaining square goes on that other side. Push that down a little tiny bit. And I'm just going to use the strip down here at the bottom as well to make sure that's all flush along there. And just very gently slide that along, and I just want to let that piece dry off for a moment before we attach these remaining vertical strips. So when that piece is then dry enough to handle, apply glue along the sides of each of those squares. The other side. And just pop it back on your worktop, and then you can just stick those remaining vertical strips along each side, again making sure that the top and bottom is flush. Very gently squeeze that together. I'm just going to bring in my spare piece of strip wood again. Just make sure it's straight along both edges. Oops. And just hold it until the glue begins to take. And then once again, I'm just going to slide that along the worktop. I'm going to leave that to dry. And then once it's dry, we can sand it to get rid of those joins. Okay, so while that's drying, take your side pieces, and we want to make a pencil mark 30mm or 1 3/16 of an inch from the bottom of each piece. So make a little pencil line at either side, and then join that up, and then we want to make a pencil mark in the centre of that line and at the centre of the top edge, and then turn the piece at an angle like that, and we want to cut diagonally between those 2 points. So line up your ruler so it's just below the edges of those pencil lines you just made, and that will allow for the thickness of the blade. And then just make a light cut, and you can go in a little bit heavier. This is creating the point for our roof. It's always more difficult to cut against the grain of the wood. And then turn the piece and cut away the triangle on the other side. Like that. And then do the same with the remaining side piece. And then erase those pencil lines. And bring in your base piece and apply glue along each of the short edges. And we're going to attach a side piece to each of those edges, making sure that the front and backs are flush along here and there. I'll put the other piece, oops, bit top heavy. And the other piece at that side. Press those together. Just gently push that along. Use another piece of wood. And again, I just want to let that dry off for a moment, and then we'll attach the back. So while that piece is drying, just bring in the back piece, and we're just going to create a bevel along one long edge. So with your sandpaper flat on your work surface, hold it at a 45-degree angle and just sweep it towards you. And you don't need to do that many times, and already you can see that started to round off. And this is just to allow for the roof overhang. A few more times like that. And then that needs to be attached to the back so that the bevel is on this outside edge. So when this piece is ready to handle, apply glue along those sides up to the sort of point of the roof apex, and then along that bottom edge, and then attach the back piece so the bevel is at the top and facing this way, facing outwards. Make sure those side pieces are flush with the side of that back piece. Pull them up if you need to. That will square everything off. And then just carefully press all of that together. Making sure you've got a nice square. And once again, that can be left to dry. And once again, when that's dry enough to handle, just apply a coat of white paint just on the inside, and that's just so that the natural wood isn't visible through the windows and the door. Whilst the interior paint is drying, take the front panel, which should now be nice and dry, and with it laid flat on your work surface, use your fine grade sandpaper to sand it using small circular motions, supporting the piece as you work on it. And that will begin to sort of blend away those joins. Okay, so once it's sanded, we now want to create a bevel along this top front edge, just so that the roof can slightly overlap. But because it's quite a fragile piece, just use a spare piece of wood, place it behind it like that, so the top's just overlapping, and then that will support it as you create the bevel. So using your fine grade sandpaper, just sweep it along at a sort of 45-degree angle along the top of the front edge. and then just keep going until that starts to bevel off. You can see there that's already started to go, but I'm just going to do a little bit more on there just so that we can get a nice overlap with the roof at the front there. So once you've created that bevel along the front edge there, we can attach the front panel to the house. So apply glue along those front edges, again up to the sort of point of the where the roof begins, and along that bottom edge as well. And then attach the front, and the bevel should sit just below, or sort of be a continuation rather, of the slope of the roof. Now if your bevel isn't very deep and it comes down below the bottom of the house, that's okay because we can sand that off, but that needs to be one straight line down there so that the roof will sit nicely on there. So press it into place, check both sides as well, that you've got that nice slope coming down there. And I've got a tiny little bit of an overhang at the bottom, that's okay, we can sand that off. So press that all together, making sure you just press at the sides, don't press at the front there because that is a fragile piece. Press that all down. And then once again that piece can be left to dry. So while the glue is drying on that front panel, I just wanted to take a minute to show you my latest book. It's called Making Doll's House Miniatures in 1/12 scale, and it includes over 50 projects, all sort of smaller projects for your 12th scale doll's house. All of the projects are laid out in easy to follow step-by-step tutorials, and all divided into sort of sections as well. So this lovely ironing board is in the laundry room section, fold-in ironing board. A lovely little wall shelf in there as well. Just lots of different things to fill up your doll's house. And if you're enjoying this project, I think you might quite like the book. There's another doll's house in there. This one is a little bit more elaborate, painted as well. And I include the pan tile paper in there for you to photocopy and use for the roof. I've tried to include something for everybody. That's the attic section there. Whole section of pieces for the kitchen. Lovely roll top bread bin. And just lots of different pieces that are easy to make. And it's all laid out in really easy step-by-step tutorials with a picture for every step. Waste paper basket. So this is my third book, and the other two include more sort of furniture related items, but I enjoy making miniatures as well, so I thought I'd do a book just for miniatures. So do take a look if you have a minute. It's available to purchase through Amazon, and I'll pop a link below. Okay, let's get back to our doll's house. Okay, so once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, sand the house on all sides, especially along that bottom, to make sure you've got a nice flat edge along the front there. And now we can make our textured paint. So I've just put half a teaspoonful of my white emulsion paint into a pot. Certainly don't add the sand into your paint pot because you won't be able to use it again. And then I'm just going to put half of that, so just a sort of quarter of a spoonful of fine sand. And this sand you should be able to get from most craft places. In fact, I think that's enough, so probably just an eighth of a spoonful there. And then just need a stick or something to stir that in with. I've got a coffee stirrer here. So stir that up. And you can add a bit more sand if you think it needs a bit more texture. I'm actually going to pop a little bit more in there. Best to add just a little bit at a time. Sprinkle that in. And you just want it to look nice and thick and lumpy. So give that a good stir. And then probably best not to use your best paintbrush. And then you can just sort of begin by stippling it on. Not too thick. But especially on the front, we want it to sort of hide any joins that may still be showing. Okay, so that's now had one coat all the way around, and I'm going to now leave that to dry. So before we paint the roof pieces, I just want to bevel one long edge of each piece. So the same as we did with the back panel, just hold the piece at a 45-degree angle and sweep it along the sandpaper towards you. And this is just so that each piece sits a bit neater over the edges of the doll's house. So do that with both pieces. Okay, so the roof pieces are now ready to paint, and I just wanted a sort of slate grey colour, so I've mixed a off black with some pale grey, just to give me this nice slate grey. And I know the pot's too big, I haven't got any small ones left. And I've got this latex glove on, just to protect my hands from the paint. And I'm going to do a coat on both sides of the roof, and again that's just so you can't see any wood through the window and door hole. And make sure as well that you get along the edges, because obviously they'll still be visible once the piece is in place. And I'll just prop that on there to dry. Okay, so before we attach the roof pieces, just use your fine grade sandpaper and go along these areas here just to remove any paint, so that we've got a flat surface to attach the roof to. And I've already done that, so put that away. And then we're going to attach the back piece first. So the beveled edge should be at the bottom and facing inwards. So apply glue to the roof sort of points. And along that back beveled edge as well. And I'm going to attach the panel so that the top of it, or the flat edge, again makes a line with the side of the wall there. And the same at the other side. Just move that up a bit, and then you should have an even overhang at each side as well, so that will be a couple of millimetres at each side. And just press that down. I'll just let the glue dry off for a moment. So once that's dried off a little, apply glue to the front edges, to the sides, and then along the front of the roof back, and then along that front edge as well, like that. And again, make sure the beveled side is at the bottom and facing inwards. And then attach that so the top of the roof sort of continues on from that back panel, so you've got a straight edge up there. Make sure it's overhanging the same amount, and there as well. Press that down. And just remove the glue that's coming out from the back there. Okay, that can then be left to dry. That's the completed piece. I just went round with a very small brush and just my normal white paint and painted the inside of these window frames, just so that there's no sort of wood showing there. And there's the completed house. I hope you've enjoyed this project. I hope you'll give it a go. Nice little quick and easy project for a weekend. I hope as well that you'll subscribe to my channel, as I've got lots more tutorials coming up. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.